So today we're gonna do lab 5. Generally, you shouldn't have any problem with the lab if you use all the right commands and follow the instructions. So I'll walk you through how to set up the web app and then run Zap, I'm sorry, Z attack proxy, and then be able to set up your honeypot. So today we're going to use Kali Linux. You can use the version that you had previously downloaded. Let me share screen before I forget. Um, and then be able to install the tools that you need. So, or you can re-extract. So what I did was I re-extracted my Kali Linux. I'm going to go ahead and load that into VirtualBox. So call up the app. I'm going to give it more RAM and processor only because I want it to be more responsive. So let me remove the old version. So go to settings. Before we start our VM, we're going to give it more RAM. So 8,000. And we're going to give it 4 processor. And we're going to start. So once your virtual machine boots up, you can log in. The login information is on step 8. Now, a big part of doing the lab is going to be setting up your web application. We're going to use a pre-built package, Damn Vulnerable Web App. This is basically a package that we can bring into Kali Linux. You've seen this in some other lab. In this lab, you are going to configure it a little bit more. You're going to add the database to it, so that way it is more a functioning web app versus just a software package that you install and host it with the local web server. We're going to host everything on our Linux machine and use it to be able to analyze. So it is a target and it is a scanner at the same time. So once you log in into step 8, you would proceed to the part B after your Kali Linux had boot up. Then we're going to open up our terminal and we are going to go into this directory only because this directory contains the web files that you need for your web application. You want to organize it to be in the same location so that way it is easier to manage. So if I'm going to download the web application, I'm going to put it into the HTML folder or the directory in the Linux. And these are the default directory that comes with your Linux system. Okay, so let me zoom in a little bit and we're going to proceed. So we are going to move into this folder or the directory that's shown there. And this is going to be where we're going to keep our web content. Once you do that, we are going to download the software package for our web app. And basically it's already pre-coded, so we are going to pull that down from Git and then save it to the folder that we just accessed. So when you do a Git there, we're going to put in our password and it's going to download the package. Then what we're going to do is we are going to rename the folder from the uppercase DVWA to the lowercase DVWA only because it's easier to do the command. You don't have to, but it's just one command, so we can just rename by doing an MV command. So once you do that, if everything is correct, you have no error, we are going to change the permission for that the files inside that directory. So all the files, including the code, right, the application. So we are going to set the read, the write, and the execute to 777, which means that it's full control, right? So execute command, we're going to do a chmod command to change the permission for that folder that contains your web application files. We want to do that is so that way we can configure our web application. So technically, if this is, if you build the web app, you want to put it in the folder where what the folder that you're gonna use for your web hosting, and you want to be able to configure your web app, so that way you can set that up, right? So in the next area, the DVWA directory contain a config folder, and Linux typically, this is what you see with web application. The package is going to come with a folder that contains setup files and things like that. So we are going to move into that config folder by running the command for step 14. So now we see that in our path, we're inside this folder. If you're not sure, you can always do ls, right? It's going to show the content of that folder where, for the folder that you're currently in. So once I'm in the config folder, I'm going to copy the configuration file, make a copy of it because I don't want to tweak it. And if something goes wrong, then I don't have the original file. So by practice, we should make a copy of it and then we would modify the original. So, that way we have a backup. So we are gonna do a sudo copy of our configuration file for our web app. And you can see that there. So in the future, if you want to know, what is the configuration file, then you can go into your folder content and look. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go into the configuration file and we're going to modify the account and its password, okay? And the way that we do this, just like in the past, we're going to use a text editor, which is Nano, and to open up our configuration file. So this is a PHP file for our web application. And in the PHP file, I don't know if you have taken PHP class, that's like CIS-12, but in the PHP file like this, it would contain information about, accounts, possibly maybe database, so and the web services. So what we're gonna do is you are going to use your cursor, right? Or you can also do Control W to search. You are going to search to find the DB user, the database user account. So I'm going to go down maybe a little bit. So you're going to see that like maybe the fourth line in blue here. And what you're going to go into is the bracket. So DB user, we're going to keep. We're going to keep get env. And where it says DB user in capital, you're going to delete that. And you are going to put in test user, one word. Okay? So we're going to modify this line, this section in the parentheses right here under DB user. And then right next to it, after the question mark, use your right arrow and change the DVWA as password to, actually, no. Sorry. You're going to go down to where it says password in symbols, right? You're going to delete that and you're going to put lowercase password without symbol. So go to the next line and where it says DB password, right? We are going to change that to password. Actually, I made a mistake here. So Control X. Let me repeat that. Okay. So once you access the file, where it says DB user right here, where it says DVWA, you're going to change that to test user. Okay. And then on the password section, you're going to change that to all lowercase password. We don't change the DB user or the password there. You got to change what's in the single quotation mark at the end before the semicolon. So what it's doing is it's going to run the function. It's going to pass the parameter for the web app. So we want to modify DVWA on that line to test user and then change that to password. And then you are going to press Control X to save and then yes. So once that's done, we finish step 18. Then what we're going to do next is we're going to install the MySQL server. So, for those of you, if you're taking database classes, they want you to do this for 18C, right? So we are going to run the default here is going to give us the latest version for our Linux systems. So we are going to paste that there. So it already at the newest version, it tells me that MySQL is at 1.1.1. And once you already verify that your MySQL is at the latest version, you are going to start it. So once you start it, it doesn't say anything. We can check to see if our MySQL server is started. So this is needed for database. So if you want to have a MySQL database, right, you can first install it and then you would then start it and then you can check the status. So it should say active running. And then the status, it just show that it is taking your SQL request. So if you're familiar with database, right, you would do a query to run your SQL. What's that?
So there's multiple DB users on screen.
Yeah, so you're gonna go to, press Control X. No, and
And Control Z.
no, just press N. We're not gonna save. Okay, go to the where it says. And that you will test this.
Okay, because DB user.
Yeah, it's basically because the application, it says this equals this. That's what it means. Yeah. Okay, so now we see that our MySQL server is running and it says status taking your SQL request. So that means that it is accepting query, right? Like if you want to activate your database server, you start it, now it's waiting for your request. You can put active or, the same thing that it's noted here for the status. And once we do that, we are going to log in to MySQL database as a root account. And this is how you do it through Linux command. You want it to be in a super user because you want to be able to, modify or configure the system. So you can click another terminal or you can press Control Alt T. I'm going to go ahead and open up a second, or you can just press Control C to end the status information, but I'm going to go ahead and open up another terminal as instructed. And then now I'm going to access the root account with database server. If it asks for password, put in Callie or create your own password. So what you're gonna see is it's gonna bring in MariaDB. And this is the command line interface for your database. Okay? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the CLI to make an account in our MySQL. So in MariaDB, which you can use that with your MySQL server, you basically say that you are going to make a test user account on the local system, and this is the password. So the approach is that if you are modifying the user account in your PHP file, which is part of your web application, now you have to create the same account on your database server. Two different things, right? Students tend to get mixed up, like, why am I doing this again? This is a database side, whereas the previous step was for your PHP, which is your web application. Now, once you have your account created, it just pops up the arrow like this. So when you see the arrow, you're still in Maria database, right? MariaDB. Once we have the account, what we're going to do is we are going to change the privilege for that account. We are going to grant all privileges for the application to that user on that system with that password. That's what it's saying there. Okay. Now, once you have that set up, once you change the privilege for that account, you are going to see another arrow. And now you can type in bye to get out of MariaDB, or you can press Control D, which takes you back to your command line or your terminal pop-up. Okay? Then we're going to run quick update. Now, I recommend that if you can start with an update, and then if you have a lot of installation throughout, periodically run updates, only because if you bringing in software, if it's not up to date, then you can push updates. So that way, if in the case where if there's dependencies on your software that needs updates, you have that ready. Once I have run update for step 28, so step 28, we're going to do one command at a time except for the echo. Echo needs two lines, right? So once I did the update here, I'm going to set up the certificate. We talked a little bit about this today. The reason why I wrote these steps is I want to show you how that's done for web application, which is part of your infrastructure. So we are going to set up, we are going to install, right, different requirements for our certificate authority here, our certificate. Minimize this. And then once that's ready, we are going to download the packages for the trusted GPG, which is used for encryption keys. Okay, so once that's ready, it shows that there is trusted files that was downloaded. So we talked about zero trust today. So in some cases, when you set up the content for your web application, one, you need to have for secure application or general application, you're gonna have to have some form of certificate, and you would also need, with that, you would need to have trust for your certificate to work. Then once we have our packages for GPG, we are going to download and append your php.list file. Okay, so that's done. Now, with this, we are going to install additional extension because Apache 2, that's for web. We already have MariaDB, but we're going to do MariaDB server and client, and then PHP and PHP MySQL. All of these elements for our PHP and our web server. So do the complete command there. Now, if you just do the install DVWA and start DVWA command like what you've done in the past, it automatically, because DVWA comes with Apache 2, this is a way that we can manually force it to install Apache 2 for our web app. You don't absolutely need to have Apache 2 here in this command, but it's always okay to double, right, to check and install in case that you don't have it. So this step's basically making sure that we have all the elements for our web, our databases, our PHP for our web application to fully work. Okay. Now, in the next step, we are going to configure the web server part of this. So Apache 2 and with the PHP. I want to make sure that I explain this. So if you do this a year from now, it might change if they modify the version. Okay. Now, if you write this command and it throws an error, that just means that the version has changed. So if they up it to 8.5, what's going to happen is this folder is not going to exist. So what you're going to do is you are going to navigate to the PHP folder and you're going to find the version that you're working with, okay? So if I only go to the PHP directory and I do a list, I would see that it is using 8.4. In the future, if you see 8.5 here, you just then, do a CD 8.5 and then access Apache within it. So if they upgrade the DVWA version to 8.5 for PHP, then you have to make sure that you navigate to the right folder. That's what I meant. So I'm just gonna, because it's using 8.4 still, right? Oops. We're just gonna rerun the command to access the Apache 2 folder inside the 8.4 version folder. Okay. And then within that, we are going to modify the INI file for the PHP. This is how your web application is going to work with PHP. So we are going to do a nano php.ini. We call this the ini file, right? Now, what we're going to do is we are going to search for allow URL, allow underscore URL. So that way we don't have to scroll up and down with our arrow. So once you have your file open in your text editor, you're going to press Control W to do a search. This is how you search in your Nano. And you are going to type allow underscore URL. And it's going to take you directly into that section. we don't want to modify allow URL f open. We are going to go down to the next entry, which is allow URL include, and we're gonna delete off, so backspace off, and change that to on with a capital O. Okay? So we are only gonna modify that part. So we want to allow the URL. I'm sorry, allow URL include. And then Control X to save. Yes, press Y and enter. So once you have modified the configuration file, then you're going to start the service for your web. So you are going to do sudo service apache to start. And now it started your web service. So I wanted to see if that works. So I simply open up my browser. You can write the command Firefox HTTP localhost. But what we're going to do is we are going to do HTTP, right? / localhost. And within that, because localhost refer to 127.0.0.1, that's the IP address that you've been using for the account. And so localhost pertain to our system, the Kali Linux system that we just configured, right? So it opens up the Apache page. Take a screenshot of that. We can close the page after the screenshot. So we know that our web server works. Then we are going to do an update. Once we have an update, right, it says it couldn't pull some of the repo, but that's okay. We're going to move back into the HTML folder. That's where our web content lives. And we are going to create our own landing page. So basically, you're going to write your own PHP file, right? Without having a lot of PHP knowledge, it's a really simple process. So it's kind of like a hello world file for PHP. So you're going to use a text editor. You can use text editor to write any programming in any programming languages, as long as the programming language package is available on that system. So it's a blank file that you start with, and you simply gonna pass a string. So you're going to put in a string. So if you copy and paste step 39 onto your file here and save it, you typically would have that showing up on the page, okay? So once I have pasted the welcome to my vulnerable web app in quotation mark, I'm going to go ahead and save. So Control X. And yes, I'm going to save it to hello.php, which I created. Now, you don't need to disable firewall because it was never on. So what we're going to do is we are going to see if our hello PHP file works on our system through port 80. So you can copy and paste this link onto your virtual machine browser. Okay. So open your Firefox inside your VM and paste that. And it worked, right? We have welcome to my vulnerable web app. So if you don't have the hello.php, it's going to go to the Apache 2 page. Now there is an extension to your path of your URL. You are now able to go to welcome to my vulnerable web app page. So when you think about web app, Like if they have another tab or another page, typically if it's a PHP type of app, you would see that it's gonna take you to PHP file like this. Okay? And then within that, they would write functional code for things to be executed. So if it's done in PHP, it's kind of like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come back to the terminal and we're going to start our database service, but for MariaDB. Okay, so a database server requires this thing, MySQL for Linux. Okay, you have to install and start that. And then within that, you have to have MariaDB or some kind of DB package. So that way it works, right? You saw that MariaDB was installed and started. We created user accounts in it. And anytime you change it, you should always start or restart it. Okay? So come back to here. What we're going to do is we are going to, you can close your page. You're going to come back to your terminal and you're going to start your database. Okay? And everything should be okay. So at this point, our web application works. We modify our web application to have an additional PHP file. We created some user accounts in it. And now we're going to try to analyze it. So part B is like setting up your web application and modifying it so that way we customize it basically. Attack surface analysis is a way that we can look at security vulnerability. And one of the tools that's recommended by the industry and in OWASP is ZAP or Z Attack Proxy. This is an open source tool that you can use, and it is very good for web application proxy. It gives you, generally easy to use interface and so on. So what we're going to do is we are going to come back to home. So you're going to do CD. Make sure that you do this step before 43. Otherwise, you're going to put everything into the web folder, which is okay too. But we want to come back to the home directory for our account. And then we are going to install the application. Okay? Because if you bury it too deep, then when you troubleshoot, you don't know where you place it, and that can be a problem. Okay, so once your ZAP is installed or your ZAP proxy is installed, we're going to execute the application by calling it, by using its command. So it's going to take like a couple minutes for it to go, download and install. So I have it installed. I'm going to go ahead and run it now by using ZAP proxy for step 45. And this is a Java developed program, so it's going to run your JVM, it's going to compile it. So if you use a Linux release that doesn't have the latest or the required Java, just make sure that you install Java for it. So this is the UI. See you later. Good night. Good night. It's going to pop this up. Now you can read the option. It says, yes, I want to persist this session with name-based current timestamp. Or if you want to customize that, you can specify the name and the location. If not, then, you can select this. But we are going to select the first option by default. And then you're going to click start. It's going to go, right? It's going to load this. So these are the add-ons which allows you to have features to your app. I just want you to know that you're going to have to tweak it a little bit. What I do is I click the square here so I can see the bottom button because it's not designed for virtual machine resolution. So in your window, right? You just click restore, which is this button. not minimize, restore, and then find update all. If you don't have this, you can go to tools and you can select it. On Monday, somebody had reminded me about that. I think on my last year video, I said the same thing. So click the restore and then update all. It's gonna take like a couple minutes to update all the add-ons, which are subsets of tools on your good night, and be able to have your program running. Okay? So once you have your plugin installed, your add-on installed, sure.
Regarding honeypots, are honeypots implemented when there's like a an incident, or is it just like a proactive measure?
It can be used as proactive measure. A lot of the times they are. But in the case that if you had an incident and you want to use honeypot for current future references, yeah, you can do that too. A lot of the times when they use it now, it's because they wanted to look at potential attacks that's coming in.
Oh, okay, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Either or, yeah.
Okay, night.
Good night.
Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you. All right. We're going to click close after we run the updates. Okay. And then again, you are going to click the restore button and you have to kind of tweak your windows a little bit to start. I believe it's, yeah. So if you hover your mouse, if you don't see your buttons on your app, or you can pull your app and adjust it, it might not shows all the buttons. But if you hover, it says run an automated scan against your application, right? Manually explore your application and so on. Good night. And you can also set up your scan policy too, right? Under Analyze. Let me see if I can show you. I think I have to. Yeah, so click the left button on the most left button, the blue button, and then you in your HTTP here, right? It tells you to click run automated scan against your application. That's the left blue button that has a lightning bolt. And then you are going to copy this link and you are going to paste it into this section. Or type it. Oh, it worked on the paste. Okay. And then once you do that, you are going to click attack, or I think it should let you do press enter. Scroll down and do attack. So paste the link into where it says URL to attack. So we're gonna try to scan our own application that we had customized. And then, oh, it's this way. Good night. Thank you. Let's see. And then you're gonna take a screenshot. It's telling me that it's failing, so let me check. Oh, I had 2 HTTP in the URL when I pasted it. So let me fix the HTTP part. Now that works. Okay, so make sure that you put in the right URL. And then, so it's gonna show you, right? It's gonna look at the header for your security policy. We saw this when we banner grabbed last time. You know, the banner grabber, the tools, it typically looked at like if you have anti-click jacking, A lot of the security tool for web application will do this. If you use Nictel, it also does that. So this has that element also in the back. It also grabbed the banner here, as you can see. It pulls the HTTP banner because this is a web app. So it's gonna go down the security policy the for your web content, and it's gonna check, right, if there's hidden files, so you can see. Now, the cool thing about this is it's gonna rank it high, medium, or low, and be able to give you the analysis and the result. Okay? So take a screenshot now that you know how to use that. So in a realistic sense, if you do this for a real web app, you would put in their public hosted IP address. And if you want to look at specific element of the app, like pay bill or whatever, right? Because each tab that you see, it usually is like a file or an extension to that app, a feature of that app, right? So you would put in the URL and then you'll be able to scan it. And of course, we want to make sure that we're authorized to do that, not just to run it against everything. Okay, so once that's done, you can close your Zap. So to look at your result, you can expand each area and then, it's going to give you banner information and so on. So you can play with this a little bit more. You can click on report, right? You can do generate report, and it's going to put your report into the path here. So it's going to put it in my home directory, and you can name it, and you can, put the report name. So for analysis, I want to be able to generate the report, right? And it's going to look something like this. Okay. So it gives you some statistic information, right? So based on the web app that I had customized and put on my local host, right? I have a lot of, so there's like 28.6% in risk that will be high, and the total is 57%. So it is definitely a vulnerable web app. We can close that. We can close the Zap. So when you close the Zap, it basically shut down that server for it. And then you're going to move to part D, which is honeypot. This is very easy. You need to be as root in order to use this. So we are going to do a sudo su to be a root user. You see that in red? Only because you need to configure the actual application. So, and then we're going to download Pentbox from its repository. Once that's done, we are going to access the downloaded folder or directory by doing a change directory command. So you see that in your path here. Once that's done, you are going to extract it. It's going to come down with a tar.gz file. So if you see a .tar, you have to tar in the front for Linux. So we're going to extract it or decompress it. And so right now it is version 1.8, right? Then if you want to see the file that is extracted, you can do an ls, which I will do. I always do an ls. You know why? Because we want to make sure that it is the right version in our command. So right now we're using version 1.8. In the future, if you have a different version, just make sure you use the right version number in your command. Okay? And it's also listed here. So right now I'm using 1.8. And so with that, I want to move into my petbox.1.8 version, and I'm going to also see its content. So this is a folder that we're going to access, and we're going to look at its content. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and access this folder, right? And I'm going to list the content for it. Oh, wait. And you can use double ampersand, or you can use a pipe. You can use, there are many ways that we can connect commands together. So inside the petbox 1.8 folder, which is this one, this is the content. We have README file, right? If you're not sure, you can also read that. And then this is the application right here, pentbox.rb. It's written in Ruby. So we're going to run it using shell script. So we are going to run the Ruby file. So this is the interface. It gives us a menu. It's basically, console-based application. We're gonna select 2. So type in 2, press enter for network tools. And there are other options that you can use, right? And then we are going to select 3 for honeypot. And you can choose fast auto configuration, but I'm going to do manual configuration only because this is going to be most effective. If you do fast auto configuration, it might not work right away. It's going to default to port 8080. Okay. So I put here, if you do option 1, if it doesn't work, right, you can do option 2. So I'm going to do option 2. You have to rerun the Ruby file. Like this, yeah. So you type 2 and press enter. Yeah. Every time you run the Ruby file, it's gonna reload the application. So now I'm gonna because it's configure manual. I'm gonna put 8080. See if that works. And then we can say, welcome to my honeypot. And then we're gonna save the log. So yes, type Y, press enter. And then the log file, what we're going to do is, so it says you want to do a log file name. It's going to save it to this path. So where am I at here, right? I went through the process. I want to save, right? You can just press enter to continue, which is what is in the lab instruction. Or if you want to customize, you can say honeypot. Log if you want, whatever you want for the name. If you press enter, it's going to use the default name. And then do you want to activate the beep in case of intrusion? You're going to say yes. Okay. So now your honeypot works. Just leave it open like this. Open your browser. And you are going to visit the page with the port number. So yeah, so it works. It should show, welcome to my honeypot. But wait, if you minimize it and go back to your terminal, it logs your activity. You see? So open your Firefox browser, right? And then paste and go. So 127.0.1, because you're locally hosted. So this would be if you do this in real world, right, this would be the public IP and then the port number that you host your honeypot on. So it shows, welcome to my honeypot. That's the message I wanted to add. You can also add like files and things to make it look like a real web server. And so if you look at the activity, now I have 2 intrusion, right? So if somebody visit the honeypot, you want to log it. And so it shows me that someone is visiting my honeypot through Mozilla. Yes.
Put in a message for 8080, but then I clicked.
Did you do fast at the first option the first time? How many times have you set up? That's probably wise because you keep changing the configuration, and I think we can redo it. Okay. So let's do 2, and then 3, and then 2. All right. No, don't use 80. Use 80, 81.
Different ports?
Yeah. No. Just the 4. One thing at a time, and then press enter. That's wrong. Yeah, that's why it's wrong. All right, and then now the message. Oops. And then continue. Okay. Now let's see if I can man or grab, right? I tried this with my Monday class. So I'm gonna open another terminal, and I'm gonna do a curl -I HTTP 127.0.0.1, and we're gonna do the port. Okay, so it's not received, but it's not allowed, but we're gonna see. So if someone is attempting to scrape your honeypot like this, right? You see that it tracks it. Look, it shows that someone is doing curl against your honeypot. So if they're using some kind of tool, right, we want to be able to see that on our honeypot end. So it says, oh, an attempt was detected, right? We are the attack and we are the scanner at once, but it would show which system, maybe public IP, and then the type of service. So if I don't use the browser to visit your honeypot, I use a command to launch some kind of web scraping service, then it's also going to see that, right? I didn't say this in the lecture video, but I showed this to the Monday class. So you can use different things with it and see if that works, right? Like if they were running Nmap against your stuff. So the whole point is to track it and to understand more about what's happening to your public facing system. Okay, so now take a screenshot. How do you determine if your honeypot's running? Well, in your terminal, after you activated your honeypot, right? After it says honeypot is activated, if you visit the website or you access the honeypot, if you do a curl command, it's going to track it. So what I did was I opened up another terminal, I put in curl-I and then the IP address and the port number. That also worked. You can also use your browser. And that's how we know it works. If you visit the web page itself, it actually shows you the message, right? Welcome to my honeypot. And that's how we know that my honeypot's running. And what should you access to gather the information for honeypot analysis? If you look, it tells you where the log is saved, right? In the process. So when you go through, slow down and look at where I save my file, right? So in my case, it is going to default save to log honeypot.txt. And I had also named it honeypot log. And I activated the beep. So if you have sound, it would beep when there's an intrusion. So that's like an alarm, a notification. Okay, so look at where your log is saved. That's where you can always go in. So after completing this map, what did you learn about the vulnerable web app? You can use a pre-made package and customize it to have web and database component for your testing purposes. DVWA is strictly used for education and testing purposes, not in the realistic sense. It's basically coded just with vulnerability so that way you can just bring it down and be able to set it up. And then how can you use that to analyze, right, your web application? We saw that we're able to look at security policy and vulnerabilities with our web app using Zap. And then the honeypot, how did we set it up? We used Hitbox. We're able to configure our honeypot to track the activity or the visits to our honeypot. And you need to answer the last question.
That's if I'm still struggling trying to get mine up.
Yours is not up?